Hey guys, sorry for the slightly delayed start of this video. These videos have mostly been derived from very lengthy 16-minute video files, of which have been chopped up into even thirds to make them all 20 minutes long. We will resume with the full 480p video resolution later on this spring. There's still a little snow on the ground. So, have any of you watching this video ever saw the show South Park? Right. Now, what is it about that show? Well, it shows people not being overly corny, for instance. And it seems to harbor the sensation of embarrassment regarding overly emotional, overly connectatious types of attitudes towards other people. It's almost like this episode where this boy and girl have been homeschooled and they get integrated back into the mainstream education, and it shows that they're learning to say somewhat sarcastic remarks, and at some point Eric Hartman said, "Now you're getting it," kinda. It's immaturity, social immaturity. And I think it's kind of that can demobilize considerateness. If I guessed that I could go in the basement, would that be a bad guess?
A couple minutes, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I would have guessed wrong. Well, they're very immature, and that show South Park. And I think it's because of the humor style of that show is that all of those kids at South Park, they feel embarrassed to be overly corny, quote unquote, or emotional or connectatious. So they're very like that episode about the parents of the kids who were once homeschooled got put on the flagpole, right? So they were very the once homeschooled kids seemed to be very encouraged to, call one another things like Jewad and fat ass, like, "Hey, fat ass," blah, blah, blah. That type of humor style was being dismissed as normal. And it's not that they're mean or nasty, it's just that they're being immature and they feel that that's like the way that people should talk with one another. It's a cultural thing, I think. And I hate it, though, when the specific things I'm doing are considered much worse than that. Like, it's just something based on the way that I do things makes me be able to get away with a lot less. It's almost as though the way that I am is not as acceptable. It's almost like there's a difference between forgetting to say please and thank you, or doing something that's openly inconsiderate, like disregarding how busy a person is. Calling them up and expecting them to just, being very expectatious of them to just drop everything they're doing and talk with you is a higher caliber of rude than forgetting to say please or thank you. And it's like an importance meter. And it's like there's this movie Sotsy about this basically this thug. But it seems like sometimes the thugs can be easier to connect with because they have more of a personality development, or they're more interesting. Like, suppose you got a thug, and he knows how to say, yes ma'am, or yes sir. He's spent some time in prison, but he can, say ma'am or sir, and he has more of a life story than simply being some spoiled guy who's been given everything he wants. So it's kind of like that kind of those kind of frustrating things where, for some reason, the way that I do things gets less respect. Far worse than simply do I beat up people or stuff. It's stuff that are more deeply rooted, that stem deeper than how I treat people. It's more like just things where certain people can't let them go. And I don't know what it is, but it's you almost have to really see me in day-by-day life to understand maybe like a lack of employment or something. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it, but I don't know. Now, what's my outlook on Asperger's syndrome and age? Well, I like to convince myself, because it helps cheer me up, that the younger you are, the better your likelihood of prognosis becomes for this Asperger's syndrome. Because then it consoles me that perhaps the reason why I have lacked in all of the social skill training had to do with the fact that I was born and socialized into a generation when the world was less understanding toward Asperger's. I do have plenty of dignity, but I don't always know how to communicate and show it right. Like, I don't know, I'm very literal in my assertions. So, like, when I know, like, that violence against women is not cool, I take that to a literal extreme and say, like, I don't hit women. It's just not something I do. So there's that scene in Anger Management starring Adam Sandler when the court judge said, "Mr. Booznick, I don't know why you hate women." I would have blurted out, "I don't hate women." It's like, I don't know why you hate women. I don't hate women. I would have been all like at the edge of tears. I don't know why you hate women. I don't hate women. And I'd be like all like that. I take things to a literal extreme. Like fake women that don't exist in real life is an extremely extreme to the most ability, an extreme method of avoiding making women feel uncomfortable. So I could be like, no, rest assured, anything I ever dream of is a fake woman. So with hopes that that's like basically an extremely literal, I've taken it to a literal extreme about don't make women feel uncomfortable. So if I get a desire to fantasize, I'll use my 98th percentile spatial reasoning abilities to do whatever the hell I want, as long as the woman I'm imagining is fake and looks different than anyone I met in real life. There's no visual evidence. There's no any way you could prove me guilty of anything because it's all mental. It's all in my head. But also, there's no way that a particular female friends or family are going to object because you're not doing it to her. You're doing it to a fake one. So, if anything, they'll get a little freaked out. But I also take it to a literal extreme about if somebody's underage, I'll treat them differently. Like if somebody's underage and stuff, I won't comment on how I think an outfit looks on them, or I'll just treat them differently. Like I might treat them like they've got less privileges. Like maybe sometimes ask them if their parents or whatever, what their parents think, or because there's just giving very subtle indications that, hey, I'm aware of the age or lack of it thereof. I'm very literal in things, extremely literal. So, what else was I gonna say? Or my dislike towards dumb blonde jokes. for instance. I'm literal about that. And this is a pretty good camera. The card lasts long enough to last 2 lifetimes, eh? Wow, less than half over this card is. I hate dumb blonde jokes. I don't believe them. Anytime when they say she's a ditzy blonde, I don't believe it. I don't at all. I doubt that she could ever be that dumb. I think she really is smart. In fact, like for instance, Jessica Simpson and Paris Hilton, those two gals often get accused of being lacking in the mental capacity department, but I think that Jessica Simpson is very intelligent. I also think that Paris Hilton is very intelligent. I think the two could blow me out of the water in the academics world if we all applied ourselves. They might end up having a higher likelihood of being my tutor. They would be tutoring me socially, that's for sure. Because, well, I might be saying all this because I always had a thing for the blondes, but I'm just saying I think that the blonde girls are not, I don't believe in the whole dumb blonde thing. I'm not convinced. If I knew a blonde girl, light blue-eyed, bleached blonde girl that was acting all goofy and stuff, I would in a very subtle way, like, try to squeeze in or inch in some opportunities for her to subtly prove that she really does have a brain. And I would not give any indication as to when I was giving the lesson. I just, in a very witty fashion, I would be, like, working in some opportunities for her to respond back to something I said to her that would be all the proof you need that, see, she's smart. But she might not even realize that she's proving her intelligence, but she is. So like that episode of The Simple Life Goes to Camp when the Paris Hilton ended up cuffing one of the counselors, I think, to a chair or something like that, or a railing. And she mentioned, Paris Hilton even mentioned something about a premarital agreement or something. And so she's showing that she is smart enough, that she's using her brain and stuff. And girls with straight long, or women with very straight long blonde hair of a very light color and light blue eyes, I think is my favorite look. But that's not to say I don't like brunettes. Like if the hair is really straight and stuff. Like my sister has very straight brown hair, or even black hair if it's really straight. I always like that look. What else was I going to say? But I've always had the tendency to get more preoccupied with the way a person looks as opposed to how pretty they are. Like, it's hard to say. It's like I'm good at recognizing what people's faces look like and what their height, their eyes, their hair, just what they talk about. So it's almost like looking at this bottle here. Like, I know what it looks like. And one philosophy I have for physical attractiveness in a female is that one of my favorite philosophies for physical attractiveness in females is everybody looks different. No two people look alike. So I don't care how pretty the girl is. I'll recognize what she looks like. Like, why, people aren't going to look at a picture of Avril Lavigne and mistake it for Paris Hilton. They're not going to look at a picture of Christina Aguilera and think that it's Jessica Simpson. Oh, why not though? Why don't they mess up like that? Well, they don't because they recognize how everybody looks like. They know what the person's face looks like. They know that. And I think I tend to get distracted by the person's physical appearance too much, to a point where I cause that to almost get in the way of my ability to be attracted, because I'm looking at it too much like it's a thing, like the table here or that exercise bike. I know what it looks like. I'm familiar with what she looks like, but not like thinking, oh, she's hot. And maybe it's for the better, because I'm not the best at conducting myself the best way or how to talk the right way. There's a certain level of social skills are required for dating, and I've been conversing with a lot of naysayers lately, so you sure I made the right decision not to go in the basement?
I don't know why you're recording me.
I'm not, because if I went in the basement, maybe I wasn't sure if I should be in the basement. I don't know. I was recording them because I've been kind of this is the iffy in between time where you're not really sure where everybody's going. See, this video is going to be iffy, but then when we reach the 20-minute divide, we're going to do a better job with the next part of it. I have this thing, I don't know if it's my Asperger's syndrome doing the talking, but it's where any female, even if I don't care if she's like as pretty as she could possibly be, no matter how pretty a young woman is, I get overly bogged down by the whole recognizing of what she looks like piece. And I allow my preoccupation with how a person looks like get in the way of how pretty I think she is. It's almost like, it's like everybody, no matter any young lady, no matter how pretty she is, no matter how beautiful she is, she's always going to look different than anybody else. It's like the reason why you don't call somebody by somebody else's name, because you know what the person looks like. So it's kind of like if there's this girl who's way pretty, I don't care how pretty she is, you're still going to notice that she looks different than anybody else you've met before. Or she looks different than anybody else. And that's the way it is. It's almost like, but when I look at her, I'm not thinking about how hot she is. I'm thinking like I'm familiar with how she looks like. Like I know how this water bottle looks, or I know how that bowl over here looks in the middle of the screen, or I know how this footstool looks like, or how this couch looks like. It's almost like I'm too preoccupied with. It's almost, they say with us Aspies, that we Aspies tend to get more preoccupied with objects and parts of objects. It's almost like when I'm holding a coin in my hand and stuff, that it's more to that level as opposed to making real, genuine human connections with people would be a different thing. So I still haven't scraped below that surface. All I see is an object that can walk and talk, as opposed to their true connecting, which is why no matter how pretty somebody is or how attractive the girl is, all I see is somebody who has an individual appearance. So, and I'd be very literal. So like I know what her hand looks like. I know what her eyes look like. I know what her hair looks like. But I lack that general inclination to like go, whoa, man, she is hot. Like I don't get that. I just get, there's Crystal, there's Sarah. That's it. And somebody's appearance does not impact what I want to talk about. I still go into a social situation and I want to talk about what's on my mind and what happens to be in my mind at any point in time. Whether it's another guy or whether it's this woman who happens to be, by many people's opinions, very hot and attractive, I don't care. I'm going to just talk at her as opposed to with her, and do all the same things I would to anyone, to the point where the girl might go, does he even recognize that I'm a female, or that I'm pretty, or what? He's only talking about himself. And so that's what I mean by take it to a very literal extreme. They say don't treat women like pieces of meat. So I take it to the opposite extreme and treat them almost like they're just another person, where I can just talk about all of my self-absorbed fascinations with things, completely discarding the fact that they're even female, for instance. So I get very literal like that. I get very serious about, but then I seriously overdo it. Like, for instance, think of Alicia Silverstone's character from the movie Clueless, for instance. With her, I would, with complete disregard for what her personality is, what would I talk about around her? Same stuff I'd talk about around anybody. Completely disregarding whatever her personality is. I'd still talk about whatever is on my mind, whatever I want to talk about, and almost completely oblivious to what she's like. And I think sometimes people think of that as blatant disregard towards other people, because it's showing that a very strong lack of receptiveness, to what you see a person or individual as being like. Almost like a lack of interest in the other person. Like, you've known Alicia Silverstone's character on Clueless for so many years, and at this point you never seem to internalize the fact that she loves to go to the mall and shop. How many years have you known her and you still don't realize this because you keep talking about what you're into? So that type of stuff I do wrong. Here's one thing. I am a skeptic to the dumb blonde thing. I'm entirely a skeptic. My preference has always been blonde girls. I know that. So this might have some influence over these assertions I make, but I'm not convinced about the dumb blonde thing. I don't believe it. I think that any possible person who tries to act goofy, but who has blonde hair, she's smart, actually. I just have that feeling. Or I don't believe anybody could really be that dumb. But I'm not saying this to offend at all. I'm saying this because just to prove my skepticness. I mean, for instance, many people when they watch the show The Newlyweds, starring Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson, they think Jessica Simpson acts dumb in it. I'm not convinced. I could very easily picture Jessica Simpson tutoring me if I knew someone like that in school, just because in my view of things, saying that, I mean, a person's hair color should have nothing to do with how smart they are. Saying that blondes are dumber than brunettes and redheads combined is almost like saying that women who polish their nails red score lower on IQ tests than ones who polish their nails silver or gold, for instance. It's like, how ridiculous does that sound? That women, it's like saying blonde hair women score lower on IQ tests. That's like saying that women who polish their nails red score lower on IQ tests than ones who polish their nails gold or silver. Blonde hair women being dumber than brunettes and redheads. That's like saying that women who polish their nails red are dumber than women who polish their nails silver or gold. It's just a hair color. That's like, oh gee, I think I got a little birthmark on my right hand. That must mean that I'm a little bit slow. That's how I see it. That's what I mean. I see things in an extremely literal sense, where I see entirely beyond the human interaction part, and all I see is like literally the texture. Like, see, like almost the texture in the leather here, or like in my hand, the texture in my hand. So I almost, when a woman is quote unquote way hot, quote unquote, I still get like preoccupied with exactly how she looks like, and seem to entirely ignore if she's hot, because I'm so focused on, like, I know what her hand looks like, I know what her arm looks like, I know what her hair looks like. But it's not the full thing. It's just almost like looking at that controller over there. That's what I mean. I'm extremely, very literal at stuff. What's my favorite method of handling it if I start getting attracted to a lady? If I start getting attracted to a female, one of my favorite things to do is focus on the face. drive attention only to the portrait, draw attention away from everything else. And then when that happens, I start talking with her and I see what she reacts like to things I say. And then after a while, I've had situations where a woman I get attracted to, after forcing myself to focus only on her portrait, right, and just talk with her, I find out that she is a little bit less patient than I hoped she'd be. So I start learning. It's almost like to kind of throw off my irrational thing, where a guy goes, "Wow, let's hook up with hot girls and stuff," but they just hook up with them without getting to know the girl. So I'll force myself to focus in on, like say if she's bending over or something, I'll look away. I won't look at her, especially if I'm really attracted. I'll look away. I won't look at her, and I'll wait for a time when she's looking right at me and I can see what her face looks like. That's what I do. Because it's almost like that scene in that movie, Georgia Rule, when Lindsay Lohan's character said, "Thanks for saying no." She thanked the guy for using self-control and stuff, for not just being quick to succumb to attractiveness and stuff. Now remember, I'm not like a Christian devote or anything like that. I'm a regular. I'm not so certain exactly what the definition of secular means, so I'll just say one who does not practice religion and stuff. But I still have a conscience and an unwillingness to be regarded as somebody who is pervert or doesn't have any self-control stuff. So that's my favorite strategy for handling if I get really attracted to a woman is to focus on her face and look at nothing else but the portrait shot, in other words. And if she's trying to do something that would get me to hooked, like, "Oops, I dropped something on the ground, let me pick it up, look away." So that's kind of what I do. I take things to a literal extreme, pretty much. When I'm told something is not appropriate, I take it extremely literally. Like, "Oh, never do that, that's bad." For instance, if I'm on Facebook, that's right, I've only been on for the past couple months, but it's really wicked fun. And a Facebook friend of mine tells me, "Hey, seriously, dude, stop it with the emailing. I don't appreciate your constant, consistent flow of emails. Please knock it off." Well, another 3 weeks later, that same guy or gal would send me a message that says, asking, "Hey, are you alive or what? Now, where have you been?" Hey, dude, when I said stop sending me messages, I didn't mean stop trying to even communicate with me altogether. Like, talk to me a little. So I took it to a very literal extreme. And, so she didn't mean don't send her any messages at all. She didn't mean retire from sending me messages ever again. She just meant reduce the inflow of messages, make them shorter. But I took the statement extremely to a literal extreme. And so that's what happens, is I'll confuse simple directions, take them in a very literal manner, very literal thinking. With Christina Aguilera, for instance, supporting violence against women, I agree that that's not cool, but I take it to an extreme. I take everything to an extreme. So on the whole, studying what somebody looks like but completely ignoring how attractive you think they are. I take that to an extreme as well, to a point where it's almost like I could know what somebody's hand looks, exactly what someone's hand looks like. Like different people have different skin textures, like on their hands that might be more porous or less porous, or like there's just certain ways someone looks, or you know exactly where their birthmarks are and stuff, and because you are so busy focusing on that, or on they're exactly like where things end up on their skin versus, wow, she's hot. So it's almost like that. It's almost like I get too caught up in the literal scientific details, but I overlook the general. Like, for instance, Alison Machaca, in other words. I was never attracted to her physically, but whenever I watch the Hellcats, it's like I've gotten to know exactly where the birthmark is on her face, or any of this, or what her hand looks like, and I get so bogged down by the literal physical appearance of the female that I let it distract me from actually getting attracted. No matter how pretty she is, I still get caught up in how she looks like. Almost like I'm looking at this water bottle here, or like I'm looking at this container over here. No matter what, I'm looking at it in a very, it is what it is type of way. But at some point, people want to be admired, so it's the girl's thinking, like, you're so busy focusing on exactly what my face looks like, exactly what my hair looks like. Now, note that I don't ever stare people down, you know. Like I say, I'm working on eye contact. That doesn't mean I'm working on learning how to stare creepily at people as I speak to them. No, I'm just learning how to look in their direction of their eyes more frequently. So I'm not talking to a wall and everything. That's what I mean. I don't mean I'm working on staring creepily at my listener as I talk with them. I just mean I am working towards a goal of boosting my eye contact. That's all. That's what my goal is. No matter what, no matter how, I don't care if she's like on the top 10 most beautiful women list. Still, everybody looks different. Nobody looks the same. And at some point, you're going to be able to identify who it is. Because an inexplicable, reason, everybody looks different. Like, Allie and AJ Menchaca, you can tell which one's Allie, you can tell which one's AJ. You're not going to walk up to Allie and say, hey, AJ, or walk up to AJ and go, hey, Allie, because you know what they look like. So, and my topic of conversation does not vary in the slightest between men or women, or African Americans, or Asians, or Hispanics. I still want to talk about all the same stuff I'll talk about anywhere else. So that the only thing I could fall prisoner to is the varying degrees of acceptiveness across the various different social cultures, I guess. I tend to talk about the same exact thing no matter who I talk with, regardless of whether the listener is male or female, whether it's someone like Alicia Silverstone's character from the movie Clueless, or whether it's, somebody else, whoever. I talk about all the same my topic of conversation is always very generic. It's very generic. Its topic of conversation does not vary based on the personality of my listener. So, I wonder what Alicia Silverstone's character on Clueless would have thought, because I just saw that movie last night. She'd probably get way bored by me very quickly, probably. That was a funny movie, though. I liked it. I'm a prisoner of the hetero guys, the hetero man's mental block against wanting to go shopping and knowing much about clothes and stuff. I admit to that. Like, last season, who gives a crap? You know, much of the clothes I wear, I bought on clearance from a department store. It's, you know, a middle income. It's a brand of clothing intended for we middle income consumers. And it's mostly bought on clearance sales. And much of the clothes I wear comes from a stash or a supply of clothes that we built up over time from various clearance sales. So last season, that's an understatement. Try like last half a decade. I'm not into clothes shopping, and much of my clothes gets derived from a stash of clothing that was accumulated over the course of a couple years. So I clearly am not into that. I'm not into my clothes being... I have absolutely no concern with my clothes being up to date, like many designer clothing shoppers like to complain or gripe if something is last season, quote unquote. No, I just reach into my stash or my supply of clothing, and it might even very easily be a couple years old. But I just reach for it. I grab it, I put it on, and if it fits, that's all I care about. It's almost like taking a memory card from way back in 2003, inserting it into a compact flash slot on a new camera you bought at the store, and the card still works. It's just like people who keep their AA batteries scattered throughout the house. They reach for two of them, insert them into a AA accepting device, and they work. That's how I am with clothes. And I got like various clothes stashes throughout the house that took about like a couple years to develop. It's not actually that many clothes. It's just a little, you know. It's not a ton of clothes. And there might be a pair of jeans I bought 3 years ago on a clearance sale. I put it on. It fits. Oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll put this up front and wear this often. Shoes. I might have a stash, or I might have a couple pairs of shoes, each being easily 3 or 4 years old. And I'll just be like, this pair of shoes is starting to fall apart. How about I'll start wearing this pair I bought back in 2005? Oh, it fits. Perfect. All right, I'll wear these. That's all I care about really is the functionality. So that makes me way different than Alicia Silverstone's character in Clueless quite a bit, doesn't it? Why? Because I am a prisoner of... I'm one of those hetero guys who is a prisoner of that stereotype of hetero guys hating to shop and disliking clothes shopping and having an extreme lack of knowledge regarding fashion, and as opposed to the gay guy stereotype that they love to shop. It's like the stereotype was present in the movie Legally Blonde. What kind of shoes am I wearing? High heels? Right, or black ones, high heels. He's like, see? And then Reese Witherspoon's character said, gay guys know designers, straight guys don't. Well, that stereotype applies to me because I wouldn't know anything. I would have probably said, like, black ones with high heels on them. That would have been my answer. Although I do have a tendency to hang around women a lot, as though I'm one of them. People ask me, are you some kind of pervert, or are you gay or something? Neither of those apply. It's because over the years, I don't know, I tend to trust women better than I could trust other men. It's just, I like to blame this on the fact that I used to be bullied a lot by other guys, or that I've had some friends in the past that were not the best influences, and my less than perfect friends and bad influences, as well as the bullies, were all males. Were all other guys. So over time I got to trust women more. But again, I get extremely preoccupied with how somebody looks like, as opposed to how pretty I think they are. So I'm very good at recognizing people, and so I was never very good with names, but once I get the names down, it's like I got them down pat. I'm extremely good at recognizing faces and stuff. I'm not very good at judging who I think is the prettiest, though. Although usually the basis I use is that people tend to always think that the one who is the prettiest is the one with the softest skin, for some reason. Like if this girl has very soft skin and everything, she's considered to be prettier than the one who has pimples or something. I never understood where that comes from, but I'm an extremely poor judge of who's the prettiest, who's the most attractive, because I don't always understand what makes the non-autistic person's mind work or tick as far as it's concerned for determining which lady is the most attractive. I don't understand what it is that makes people think a girl is less attractive if she has a pimple outbreak. I don't get how that's a problem. So I'm not as picky, in other words, but I'm also, because I'm always so busy being distracted by how a person looks like. For instance, like, see, that's Rhonda. I'm more focused on how she's shaped, like how, like her hair is in that type of style. Picture's very far away from here. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. This is a relative I have. The last of my thoughts concern how pretty I think she is. I'm thinking more about how her hair looks. I recognize her face. Stuff like that. But if she asks, no, how pretty you think I am? I'm like, your hair got a little longer. So that's what happens. I'll get that way. Part of this as well tends to be a product of not being bold enough, I think. Not being bold enough. Well, part of this tends to be derived from not being bold enough. For instance, not being bold enough in terms of whenever you tell somebody how pretty you think they are, that's a very suggestive topic area. Commenting on somebody's beauty is a very suggestive topic area, and a lot can go wrong. And people like me, I mean, somebody on YouTube said that there are loud aspies and quiet aspies, and that the loud aspies have a real tendency to just blurt things out whether or not they are the most socially appropriate, because they're very fit on. We aspies tend to be very well known to say what we're feeling and just want to be extremely honest, but our honesty might get us into trouble. So in some of these videos, I'll talk about things as such that many people might be thinking about, but that nobody has the courage to want to talk about, either that, or either they lack the guts to say anything on the topic, or they know better than I do that there's no delicate way to go about certain topics. You're just going to get yourself into big trouble no matter what happens. And I might not know better. But basically, I'm into obsessing over how exactly a person looks like, and ignoring how pretty I think she is. Just focusing entirely on what she looks like. And I'll recognize a person's face very easily, or I'll recognize what the person likes to talk about, or what their voice sounds like, and stuff. And I'll recognize the sound of somebody's voice, or what their interests seem to be, stuff like that. And it tends to make their appearance completely irrelevant. So I take it to an extremely literal. That's me taking the don't treat women like pieces of meat thing to an extreme level, to a point where I do that. Now, but the certain topics that can be sketchy or gray area that can be known to freak people out is just me talking about natural things that's a part of life. You know, like, the radio is not going to want to play this record either. Yeah, but it's part of life, you know, sex, it's blah, blah, blah. So it's a part of life. People, hetero guys such as myself, wanting to fantasize about young females, right? That's bound to happen. I mean, if you're human. But nobody ever wants to talk about that stuff because it's very, very iffy and can make a lot of people feel uncomfortable. So when I discuss the topic, I take to an extremely literal degree, wanting to go about the topic in a very literal, just, them are the facts, it is what it is type of manner. Fake women who don't even exist in real life. That way, even to think about, some people will have a big problem even knowing that you think certain things about them. What if you can think certain things about somebody who doesn't even exist? Nobody can object. And they can't find anything because it's not physical. It's all in your head. But that's just a part of life. That's just, I'm trying to be real. I'm talking about stuff that's a part of life. Sex is a part of life, so that's all I was saying. I could never live with myself to ever. I mean, what would happen if you were to walk up to, you know, a female in your neighborhood that you know, or at work, and say, you know, I'm not going to lie, I've been fantasizing about you all last night. That's probably, the outcome's not going to be very good, is it? Well, yeah, to be very politically correct for the whole nature of Facebook, let's just say, the outcome might be somewhat less than favorable. Well, but what if you could do the same with some woman who doesn't even exist in real life and who you dreamt up, who looks different than anybody you ever met before? Obviously, she won't have any objection because she's not even real, she's fake. And she won't have any family or loved ones who will want to freaking behead you for even thinking those things, right? It's okay because she's not even real. That could be a little deviating, I know, but hey, I'm just being honest, right? What was I going to say? Because that was me taking to an extremely literal extreme. The fact about not wanting to make people feel uncomfortable and treat people like objects. What else was I going to say? The only type of people I have a problem with are the ones who are extremely strict towards wanting you to behave in a certain social norm and easily taking offense to every. It's people who have very strong opinions formed about certain things, and it's always like you're walking on eggshells with them because it's like